And I'm Lowell.
Welcome to the Laura and Lowell Show.
And we welcome our guest today, Doug
Hi,
Reisinger, who is a practitioner and teacher of yoga. Doug, please tell us a little bit about your school of yoga.
Well, my style is more, it's called Vinyasa, which stems from Ashtanga yoga, which is basically a group of usually about 25 to 30 postures that you'll usually do in an hour to an hour and a half in class. We take you through a sequence of different postures. Usually a lot of it flows together, so you're moving from one posture to another.
How many schools of yoga are there, and how far back do they go?
Well, there are probably hundreds, I would say. I'm not exactly sure, but usually yoga stems. Originally they thought it was 3,000 years, but then they discovered new work, and they're saying it stems from about 5,000 years ago.
Very interesting, because the oldest known civilization, this is agreed by all scholars, at least for which there are any written records, are the Sumerians. And that dates to about 5,000 years ago, which is 3000 BCE, the ancient civilization in what is now southern Iraq, southern Mesopotamia. And how do we know about them? Because of the cuneiform tablets they left, thousands and thousands of which await translation. They've been unearthed primarily in the 19th century, and they sit in museums around the world as scholars little by little go through them. There are no older civilizations known than that. Not the Indus Valley civilization from India, not the Egyptian civilization, and certainly not Japan or China. That's ground zero for human civilizations. We know it in terms of written record. So what Doug says about dating it back 5,000 years is fascinating, because that takes you back to ancient Sumer, which is when we got started with written records.
Mm-hmm.
So in your yoga practice, does it involve a sitting or walking meditation, or it's mostly postures?
Usually, you can find all ways to meditate, but usually it is a sitting posture with a nice long tall spine. That's usually the best way to meditate. Sitting in a cross-legged seat position.
So you're sitting,
mm-hmm.
and you have yoga postures. Would you also be lying down, or?
Lying down, and usually you start with a nice warm-up. We take you through, from 6 to 8 different postures, just warming up the body. And then we move on to what we call sun salutations, which are, in India they still do this. They praise the sun every morning with these sun salutations.
I like that.
Speaking about sun salutations, right behind us here we have sunflowers. And I was just with Laura for her 50th going on 17th birthday party at the Harvest restaurant.
Harvest on Hudson in Hastings.
Right on the water.
Oh, wow.
And they have a beautiful garden of gigantic sunflowers, larger than life, from the Wizard of Oz. Maybe they're radioactive flowers, which are enormous flowers,
yes.
like from that movie Avatar, from the
Yes.
Avatar world.
That's a
So
good
you
description.
start your yoga by greeting the sun.
Sun salutations, yes.
I like
Which basically, you could just do sun salutations, and that's the only thing you could do. If you were only doing sun salutations, you would still have a nice vinyasa flow, which they also build bone density as well, too, in the body. So.
My little dachshund does the sun salutation every morning.
Oh, yeah.
He stretches. The first thing he wakes up and he goes forward, and then he stretches back. And this has been a ritual since I've had him. And he has his yoga stretch.
Oh, so he's doing upward facing dog.
Upward facing dog.
Upward
Upward facing dog. I like that.
Yes.
In a few minutes after we conclude our introduction, we will be filming a feature where Doug will be leading Laura and I think Brandon, our friend, in some of these postures. You call them postures, not exercises, right?
Yeah, we call it asana, which basically just means like steps, or kramas as well too, in Vinyasa.
I was allowed to sit in on a wonderful class in acting at the New York Film Academy, which I love very much. That's where I got started, with a wonderful professor named Miguel Parga. And one of the students said something about, okay, Prof, we're going to go and practice. He said, excuse me, basketball players practice, actors rehearse, and yoga students do postures. We're going to do postures with teacher Doug. Laura, did you ever do yoga
Yes.
as part of your
I
various
love-
trainings?
I have a yoga friend. She's 98 years old. She's still practicing and she travels the world. Her name's Tawa Portion Lynch.
How old is she?
98.
And still practicing yoga and traveling worldwide?
She goes to India, she goes to England, she goes all over the world. And she's one of the top leading yoga instructors in the world. And I met her in Yonkers, New York when I was living in the dorm at the time, and the dorm would close, and I lived in it's called Elizabeth Seton College in Yonkers, where the Sisters of Charity were housed, and Tawa used to teach in the ballet studio, and I became her student, and we kept in touch all these years, and she encouraged me to go into acting and express myself, and yoga was one of the modalities. She told me, never let go of, Laura, it'll open you up more and more. So I really know the power of yoga. And you can go online and read about her. And they just had a birthday party for her this month.
I think I saw that on Facebook.
Oh, did you?
Yes,
She does these poses where she can put her legs in
At 98.
and back of her head, and she stretches her legs straight up in the air, and she's amazing. And I meet her in Trader Joe's in Hartsdale all the time when I'm shopping. And she's always buying healthy food and giving me words of wisdom, and she knows that it is powerful. So all of you out there, take up yoga. I need to get back into like they say, you fall off the horse, you got to get back up on the saddle, right? Well,
Speaking of birthdays, this is birthday
that's
row.
right.
Laura just turned 50, going on
That's
17. Doug's a little bit younger than us. He just had his birthday.
Yes.
And I just turned 57,
Yesterday,
going on
that was the day
17.
before.
Yeah, he was telling me.
And my dad, who is the fitness model at the Hebrew Home for Hunks and Babes over here in Riverdale, will be 93 in September, going on 17. Laura and I, the other day, we were going there. She's a storyteller for my dad through Dominic Chinese's Joy Through Art Foundation. We met a lady with her mother who was also 93. And, oh, your father's here. Who's your father? My father, he comes out each morning to sunbathe on the patio. And the lady's eyes lit up and she said, "That's your father?" She said, "We call him the naked man." Why? Because my dad is as big a show-off as I am. Where do you think I got it from? He goes out after play pumps iron every day in the gym there, and he takes off his shirt, and with his walker he goes out and he suns himself in the patio, and this is a big hit at the Hebrew Home. They're all waiting for him, and she said, "Oh, we know who he is. We call him the naked man." So let's see if you can show off your beefcake at 93, like my dad, who's the naked man, the fitness model at the Hebrew Home for Hunks and Babes. You got to do the best you can with what you got at any age. Push your genome to the limits. Turn off the bad genes, turn on the good genes, and the network of good genes. Like Laura said, this lady's 98 and can turn herself into a rubber band.
She can, and she still drives. She has a little Mini Cooper. And she jets around in her little, and she's an expert with wines. She's a wine expert, and she knows all the most delicious tastes of the best elegant wines to pair with your dinners, and it's just wonderful.
It's great. It's good for her. That's amazing.
It keeps her very active, and she's got a, and she's a ballroom dancer. She's one of the top I forgot that part. She goes and dances in beautiful gowns and competitions, and she's at the Fred Astaire Dance Studio.
See the next Ginger Rogers.
In Hartsdale, New York.
98.
At the Fred Astaire Dance Studio, and she ballroom dances, and she's just a role model for me. She's amazing.
Oh, I bet she is.
Before we move to our feature where Doug will be showing us some postures, you've told us about greeting the sun that you start off your sessions with. What else would you like to tell our viewers before we move to them actually seeing us in action with some yoga training?
Well, the class usually consists of a nice warm-up, and then you move through usually 6 to 8 sun salutations, and then we move on to a flow of different postures as well too. We work you through a standing series of back bends, hip openers, forward folds, and we basically just work the whole body, and that's what a class usually consists of. and then we'll end with a nice deep relaxation, which we call Shavasana, which, you know, usually Shavasana is actually the hardest part in yoga, because it's more about clearing the mind than anything.
Right.
And that, which is the hardest thing that we can do in the human body, is to let go.
Let go.
Laura, you have any other questions or comments before we move to our feature?
Sure. Well, you just inspired me to get back into yoga.
Great. And I'm
looking forward to this.
That's what that's what I'm here for. So
Thank you.
It's my way of giving back as well,
Well, you've, I got the injection now to do it.
Great.
Our audience, do you have any questions or comments? You'll have to wait until we have a live show, which will come in time, then we'll take those questions or comments. Now we're going to move to our feature. So Doug, thank you very much for this introduction.
Thank you for
having
having
me. Give us about a minute or two,
Thank
and we're
you.
moving to part 2, which is our feature. See you in a few moments.